I'm Modiin Marks. Welcome to Modiin and Beyond. Join me every Sunday between 3 and 4 on Radio Modiin as we take a look at what's happening in Modiin, Israel, and beyond. I'm Modiin Marks. It's not Sunday, but it's Tuesday. It's a day of balagan across the country, so that's why we are slightly delayed today. And welcome to Modiin and Beyond on Radio Modiin. And you can check us out every day at www.radiomodiin.co.il. And hey, that's just the way it goes here in Israel. When there are protests and delays, we just flow with it because yeah, beseder, as we say. We have an incredible show today. I have two wonderful guests. I'm so thrilled to be joined in studio by two fantastic gentlemen. I have our first guest is Rabbi Shlomo Hammer. He founded Gila's Way. We're going to talk more about the Amutah Gila's Way, why it started, what it's all about, and how you can support it. And then we're going to be speaking to a man who I think is Israel's greatest friend and my personal friend, Eric Rubin. We're going to be speaking about Israel's aid in times of distress. As many of you are aware, we have our Abrahamic allies in Morocco struck by a terrible, terrible earthquake. Over 2,800 people killed and many, many more injured. And Israel, as always, is first off the mark offering aid. We're going to be speaking more about that. Unfortunately, we won't be joined by our showbiz queen, Yael Kinar, but I'm sure she'll be back soon with some incredible showbiz updates. We like to bring those to you, and making sure everything goes according to plan and I behave myself is my engineer, Pe'er Atia, behind the scenes. But a huge welcome to Rabbi Shlomo Hammer.
Shalom.
Rabbi Shalom Hammer.
Shlomo is a good name too, but it's Shalom. Yeah.
Rabbi Shalom Hammer. Rabbi, first of all, welcome to Modiin and Beyond. Now, we're going to be talking about a very, very serious topic. It's a topic that I think affects many families, and sadly, we have seen a significant increase, especially following the global pandemic, and that is suicide. On the 10th of September, it was Suicide Awareness Day. This is a subject that is very, very close to your heart. It is often very difficult for people to recognize when others are in distress and need our help. And we need to learn to recognize those red flags before it is too late. So, Rabbi, tell us a little bit about Gila's Way, the Amutah, and what made you start it.
Well, I mean, what made me start it, first of all, Rolene, thank you for having me, and thank you for inviting me to be on the show. Tragedy was the impetus which really caused us and encouraged me, my family, my wife certainly, to open this Amutah, to open this organization. The tragedy was a little over 3.5 years ago. Our dear daughter, Gila, at the age of 18, who had suffered from trauma, which we can't go into all the details at this point, but I do speak about it publicly. She was suffering from depression, anxiety, which is a typical way of which trauma goes, and tragically she died from suicide at the age of 18. I, being someone who now had to face the worst possible trauma ever, didn't know any other way other than trying to memorialize, commemorate her memory by ensuring that, God forbid, no one else should have to experience such tragic, catastrophic circumstances. And what we realized was that one of the reasons why Gila died was because there was not enough information. We were not informed enough, not by Gila psychologists, not by Gila psychiatrists. There was a certain amount of negligence, certainly with regards to that lack of knowledge. And what we said was there's no reason why that has to happen. People need to know, people need to converse, people need to engage in dialogue, and people need to know the facts. And as you said in your introduction, many people don't know how to identify the signs or to be able to understand what might be lurking in someone's mind, including suicidal ideation. And for that reason, we opened this Amutah, this organization, so that people would be more well informed, more educated, would know what to ask, how to identify, particularly when it comes to the most aggressive climb in suicides today, which are teens and pre-adolescents from the ages of 16 to approximately 24. Those adolescents, young adults need to know, need to understand when my friend is in crisis, when my friend is in trouble, when someone around me is experiencing hardships. How do I approach them? What can I say to them that can make a difference? And what are the signs that I'm looking for in order to get them to a safer place?
Let's talk about those signs, because often when we see somebody going through a depression or suffering from anxiety, for many people who don't understand just how severe it is, they will often say, "We'll just snap out of it." And for somebody suffering with depression, they don't know a way out of it. They go into a very, very dark place where they see no way of coming out. So if we do notice friends, and especially, as you mentioned, young people, I think with social media and the influence it is having on so many young people coming out of a global pandemic, young people not knowing or understanding how to process what they are feeling, what are some of the signs that we should be looking out for?
Well, you just said a very big mouthful. And two of the things that I want to point out. Number one, someone who's suffering from depression, it's exactly right what you said. There are people who will approach them. And you see, we are a society that really subscribes to seeing is believing. What we see, we believe in. What we see, we believe we can understand. Mental health and mental illness is the cancer of the mind. And the mind is a very complex thing. It's where everything begins and everything ends. So it's something that we don't see. It's something that we don't comprehend. It's hard enough for ourselves to comprehend our own minds. And for that reason, people don't understand it, or they reject it. Or they reject it as something that's not necessarily realistic or something that one can cope with or deal with. And so people will typically tell someone who's depressed, why don't you just snap out of it, as you said. Someone who's depressed, I know someone who fell into deep depression, they told me that that's like telling someone who suffers from migraines, just take 2 Acamol or 2 paracetamol and call me in the morning. Anyone who knows about a migraine knows that it's not going to go away. And it's the same thing with regards to depression. Someone who's dealing with suicidal ideation and thinking about suicide, I have been told by someone who has had those thoughts that it's like someone holding a hot iron to their hand and they don't know how to release that iron and to release the pain. So it is excruciating. It's internally excruciating, and they're going through these things. We need to understand and appreciate that as much as possible. The signs that some of these people experience, particularly when we speak about teenagers, youth, adolescents, and you calculate into that corona, isolation, social media, lack of communication, impulsivity, hormone development, physical developments that can affect them in all types of ways. Many of the signs that they'll be experiencing is depression, i.e. too much sleep or lack of sleep, staying away from social crowds, ostracizing themselves from being in a social atmosphere, giving up on tasks, typically school. They give up on it. They no longer are interested in proving themselves in the classroom or in exams, and they don't go to school altogether. Giving away some of their precious things, speaking about the fact that they're a burden to the people around them and that people would be better off without them. Typically neglecting themselves physically, no longer caring for themselves or manicuring themselves. That also is a sign. So many of these are suicidal signs. And if one has 1 or 2 of them, obviously it's something to be concerned about and something to monitor. But when we speak about someone who is deep in depression and seriously considering suicide, we're usually talking about a number of these that show up.
So, what is the next step from there? If you've noticed your loved one, your friend showing these signs, what is the next step from there?
Well, what you want to do is you want to be as preventative as possible. You see, the most dangerous point that a person can reach is when they are in despair, when they feel that there's no reason left for them to live, i.e., I don't have a purpose. I don't have a meaning. I don't have what to contribute to society. Every single normal person in this world ultimately wants to know that they have worth, that they have value, that they can contribute something to the world around them. People who are suffering from mental illness, they also want that, but it's much harder for them to get there. And for that reason, it's important for us to be preventative. When we see that someone is starting to slouch or starting to grow into a little bit of a depression, sleeping too much, not socializing, isolating themselves, neglecting themselves, no longer completing tasks, speaking about the fact that they feel guilty about being here. By the way, one of the things I should mention is self-harming, which is something that we see even in 8-year-olds today. When we see that those signs are starting to develop, what the people are really doing who are suffering, they're throwing out signals to us. They're saying essentially, save me. I always remind, exactly, I need help. They're saying, save me, I need help. Please get me to a better place. So we have to be proactive and to say, okay, I see these signs are developing, therapy, possibly psychiatry, all right, medications, reminding them of things that they do like and assisting them to get there and be involved in them so that they do once again establish purpose, hobbies that they might embrace and love, surround them with that, social contacts, friends who might have fell off the wayside because they just feel that this person is in a bad place, they can't relate to them. Remind those friends who can be empathetic and who can be understanding, come around, speak to that person. I often tell teens and young adults, it's a big problem with social media because in the end of the day, texting and WhatsApping is not where it's at. People who are suffering and dealing with mental challenges, they need human touch. They need human eyesight. They need eye contact. They need a heart to listen to. They need a hand to hold. That's what means something to them. And not only because we're human, but also because that demonstrates that that person is willing to take the time to reach out. It's not just a text that I quickly send to someone, but I'm actually investing time because I know that you are worth it to me. I validate your feelings. I don't want you to have guilt. I'm here for you as a close and significant other.
And also just to remind teenagers that social media is not reality. People show you what they want you to see. It's not real life. You know, I often have this conversation with my husband that social media is great in terms of promoting what you want to promote, but it's also, as Lady Gaga, I think, once said, it's the latrine of the internet because it can take us to some really, really horrendous places. Now, tell us about the Amuta Gila's Way.
So, yeah, go ahead. Sorry, did I cut you off?
You didn't cut me off. I want you to tell us about it and how
Sure.
people who might need help or are looking to help others may be involved, may be in touch with you.
Absolutely. Well, thank God, Gila's Way has really had a wide span. By the way, I say thank God very carefully. And the reason why I say that cautiously is because the truth is I would rather not be in business at all. I wish that we didn't have this Amuta. I wish that it didn't have to exist, but unfortunately it has to because there are so many people out there who are suffering and need to be in the know in order to help their significant other get to a better place. What we offer is largely, predominantly, two things. Number one, education. We do that through a series of lectures. There's a lecture called Gila's Way, Mental Health Awareness and Suicide Prevention. There's a lecture called Truths My Daughter Taught Me, which I particularly target adolescents to learn about empathy and asking the people around you, hey, how are you? How can I help you? I notice that you're going through some difficult times. I'm here for you. What's up? Those questions of are you okay or how can I help can make a life-saving difference because all of a sudden it becomes a lifeline to that person. By the way, I should mention all of our programs and activities are bilingual, both in Hebrew and in English. Anyone who wants to find out about them can go to www.gilasway.com. They'll find the Hebrew website and English at the same time. We have courses One is called the Mental Health Awareness Course, the basics of mental health, the basics of depression, anxiety, eating disorders, and suicide awareness. We have a course called Navigation to Salvation, Here to Help seminar, which is specifically also targeted for adults and parents, but also for youth and teens to be able to learn and identify in a 3-part seminar course how to interact with people who are suffering, how to identify them, and how to help get them to that first step of just being in a better place. We are not therapists. We are not mental health professionals. Let that be clear. What we are very well informed, and we are instructors, and we're trying to instruct people so that they too can instruct others, so they can educate themselves and know how to help that person. So those are some of the courses and seminars we have. We have a Spread Joy Day in Gila's memory, which we do on all campuses throughout Israel, university campuses. It's an interactive exhibition we set up in the heart of the campus. We tell Gila's story, but it also are posters and billboards where people can read about the various signs, how to help someone. And then we have a CTA, a call to action, where they actually take something and can bring it to a friend who's in crisis and learn how to help that person. So there's a lot of education, but also a call to action to bring them to that step, because people have a hard time approaching someone. There's a discomfort there, and there's a certain barrier that we try to break down in order to help that person. And finally, the second focus of our organization is consultation. This is consultation not for people who are in crisis. We are not qualified to do that. We offer consultation to the significant others who are dealing with someone close to them in crisis, i.e., a spouse, a close friend, a colleague, a sibling, and certainly a child. Most of the calls I get are from parents. We have offered over the last 8 months over 60 consultations alone, which help people know how to take the first step to get that person to recovery. And by the way, many of those consultations, we have had to explain to the person that your child or your significant other is absolutely suicidal. They do not recognize the signs. They don't know. You need to get them to a hospital, or you need to ensure 24/7 that they're in a safer place because they're in danger. And we have absolutely saved lives as a result of that, and in Gila's memory. These are many of the things that we're involved with. We also disseminate these courses and seminars and lectures worldwide to communities internationally. Just came back from Australia, full lecture tour of Sydney and Perth, Australia. And in addition, I brought here today, we're running a campaign for Rosh Hashanah, which is called the Book of Life campaign. In Gila's memory, I wrote 5 children's books. They're called the Gila Spreads Joy series. I don't know if that's on the camera or not. Here we go. There are 5 different stories based on true stories that happened to her in her life and how she demonstrated empathy and kindness to the people around her, family, friends, neighborhood, people, etc. And these are beautifully animated books. We are running a campaign that anyone who gives a contribution of $360, 20 times Chai, 20 times the time of life, 18, they receive these books as a consolation to our prize for their dedication and their donation contribution very kindly to us. So I'd love to send you could send that link out. Certainly people who visit the website, they'll get the link immediately. It will pop up. It's gilasway.com. And we look forward to not only receiving help, but trying to help others as well, of course, and save lives.
Well, those website details will be on our website and also on the replay on YouTube. I want to thank you so much, Rabbi Shalom Hammer, who started the incredible Amutah Gila's Way in memory of his daughter Gila. May her memory be blessed. Please, if you think you have somebody in your family, in your friendship circle who is in trouble, who may need help, please visit www.gilasway.com. That is www.gilasway.com for ways that you can be of help and of assistance. Let's go out there. Let's save lives. Thank you, Rabbi Hammer. We're going to take a short music break. On the other side of this, we're going to be speaking to Israel's incredible aid to the world with my friend, Eric Rubin.
Thank you.
רדיו מודיעין, התושבים מדברים. רדיו מודיעין, התושבים מדברים. מתחם עסקים חדש הנבנה בימים אלו בעיר מודיעין, כולל 8 קומות של משרדים ומסחר. המשרדים תוכננו לניצול מרבי של החלל, עם חלונות זכוכית העוטפים את הבניין, ואפשרות חלוקה למשרדים קטנים הפונים לנוף.
בעיר מודיעין.
שלטק מודיעין הוא מתחם עבודה שיתופי ליזמים וחברות. בשלטק תמצאו עמדות עבודה אישיות, משרדים סגורים, חדרי ישיבות מרווחים, מרחבי הדרכה משודרגים, בקיצור, כל מה שעסק בצמיחה צריך. שלטק, עסקים שגדלים יחד.
טרייד סטיישן, אפליקציית המסחר זוכת הפרסים. לסחור רק עם הטוב ביותר. אליט פלטפורמס, המקבצה הפיננסית שלכם.
תקועים עם רשת איטית במשרד ובבית, או שאין מספיק קליטה ברשת האלחוטית? מפחדים שאין לכם הגנה מספיקה לבית ולעסק שלכם? שואלים את עצמכם, למה החשמל נופל לי כל הזמן? פיסיקו מחשבים, חשמל ותקשורת, היא הפתרון האולטימטיבי לעסק ולבית שלכם. עם ניסיון של 22 שנה בתחום המתח הנמוך והגבוה, נותנים לכם מענה בכל הקשור לכל עבודות החשמל בבית ובעסק שלכם. פתרונות אבטחה מתקדמות, מצלמות אבטחה, הדקות, אינטרזום ובקרות כניסה. הקמה ושידור רשת המחשבים והאינטרנט שלכם בעסק ובבית. התקשרו עוד היום ל-05-25-75-75-81. פיסיקו מחשבים, פתרונות משרדיים במקום אחד. תנו לניסיון לדבר.
Welcome back. I'm Rolene Marks. This is Modiin and Beyond on Radio Modiin. And if you want to advertise your business on Modiin and Beyond or on anybody else's show on Radio Modiin, please be in touch with us via our website at www.radiomodiin.co.il. And if you want your events read out on air, I just have a few here that I can share, some upcoming events. Don't forget the municipal elections on the 31st of October. You will be receiving your voting cards soon. Remember, you get 2 ballots, one for the mayor and one for the party. There will also be a screening of the movie J'accuse on the 22nd of October. Stay tuned for those details as well. And the Women's Empowerment in Business. We're going to get Sherry Albucher back in studio to find out more about that as well. But right now, I have been dying to get him into the studio for ages. I've specially imported him, and I think we're going to keep him. Eric Rubin, welcome to Modiin and Beyond. Can I share your titles with everybody?
Please.
Okay, so you are the advisory board member and partner of MENA Aid and president of Uncommon Charitable Impact. You are also very, very involved in sports diplomacy. I think that you are Israel's greatest friend and soon to be greatest asset, because wherever there is a need for positive influence and help for the state of Israel, one thing we can count on is our incredible friend, Eric Rubin.
Well, thank you so much. It is way past due that I've been on this show, so thank you so much for having me. Thank you for the kind words. But I feel that way because I'm part of a community here, people like you and many of our friends who don't just think that tikkun olam is two words. It's how we live our lives. And we need to make a difference. And yeah, I think people are beginning to know that if Israel needs something, all you have to do is call Eric. And if I can make a difference, and feel so blessed that our Aliyah flight is October 30th and October 31st, municipal elections, I'll be an Israeli.
Well, we cannot wait to welcome you, because I think that you are going to be Israel's greatest asset. Now, let's talk about something that we are both very, very passionate about, and that is how Israel always responds whenever there is a need for humanitarian aid. At the beginning of the show, I mentioned the horrific earthquake just south of Marrakesh in Morocco. Nearly 3,000 people have been killed. Morocco, our great Abrahamic brothers and sisters, where I think over 1 million Israelis can track our roots back to Morocco. Earlier this year, our incredible aid to Turkey and indirectly to Syria. We've even seen it in the United States at Surfside, with the only delegation outside of Israel ever to come into the United States to help. That we have to give a shout out to the commander of our National Rescue Services, Colonel Golan Vach. And now in Morocco, so many people needing humanitarian assistance. I know from the Moroccan authorities have only let 4 countries in. Israel not called for the time being, but a huge amount of humanitarian aid needed. Now tell us about MENA Aid.
Yeah, so you mentioned the relief efforts in Turkey and Syria. So let me take a step back, and there's a wonderful organization called MENA 2050. For those listeners that don't know, MENA stands for the Middle East North African region. And all nations throughout this region have come together to create an organization that is really creating a partnership that is driven by hope for the future. That if we can bring prosperity and stability and hope to the region, then we could work on our other issues. Mm-hmm. But first, we all need to be humans. We all need to look out for each other. We need to make this world a better place. When the disaster struck in Syria and Turkey, MENA 2050 decided, well, let's create a sister organization or a relief part. And it was then, in the beginning of that terrible tragedy, that MENA Aid was formed and established. And it was by all those countries in the region. And like you had said, someone called me up and said, you know what, Eric, would you like to join this relief effort? And I said, of course. And so MENA Aid has Israeli NGOs. We have people in the Palestinian territories, Jordanian organizations in Egypt, Bahrain, Turkey, including the Turkish government is cooperating with us, Morocco, the Emiratis, the Bahrainis, the Saudi Arabians. So the organization comes together when there's a tragic need. And one of the issues that I know that comes up is when a disaster like this happens, people say, how can we help? Where can we donate money? But unfortunately, people take advantage of these situations, and there's, they basically steal money from people and go to where it need. So what MENA Aid is, it's a collective collection of many NGOs all around the world, including Uncommon Charitable Impact in the United States, as well as P3 Israel. And what we do is we are collecting donations at MENA Aid, and then we are working with all of our partner organizations to understand where is that need most necessary today. But not only where is it necessary today, what are we going to need tomorrow and next week? And it's unfortunate, you talk about the deaths, but Morocco is going to be rebuilding for years.
Yeah.
And what we can't just do is be there today or tomorrow for them, but we need to be there for the people of Morocco until they get through this. And so what we do is, today we're very heavily focused on search and rescue operations, right? We have to save those people we can. We have to find the people that are missing. But as you know, at some point, they're going to need shelter. They're going to need food. They're going to need counseling and psychological services. And so what we're doing is we're also planning what's happening today on the ground and thinking about where it needs to go tomorrow and beyond. And so what we're able to do is collect the money, provide it to the NGOs that need it today, while we're also beginning to get supplies and aid and everything. So for example, in the next few days, we will have trucks going all throughout Israel and the Palestinian territories collecting food, medical supplies, clothing, tents, sleeping bags, whatever we can to ship to Morocco. As you mentioned, not just in Surfside, but always, if not the first on the ground, one of the first is Israel. They're one of our partner organizations. And while Israel is not one of the first 4 countries that are on the ground in Morocco from a diplomatic standpoint, Israel was one of the first NGOs around the world to be on the ground providing relief. And they're doing search and rescue operations. Unfortunately, they're experts at it. I want to say unfortunately because these disasters happen, but it's something that Israel does an amazing job all around the world at. And our team is constantly talking. So today, we're trying to funnel as much funding as we can to Israel. In a week or two, it might be the Jordanian Aid Society that's going to be providing relief, or it may be NOLA, which is an organization that provides counseling services. So this way, what people can know is the money's coming in. We have an advisory board of NGO experts from all around the world, and particularly in the region, that are allocating the funds that come in to where it's needed the most today, tomorrow, and the future.
Because what I'm hearing is that this is human to human. It transcends any political boundaries. It just transcends any geographical boundaries. And this is a great example of what can happen in the Middle East, where we do have Palestinians and Israelis cooperating, because we are recognizing at the very, very base of it all, we're humans and we make contact with each other. Now, how do we, as people who are sitting watching the news, feeling very, very helpless, how do we contribute? What can we do to help?
So go to www.MENA2050.org. At the very top of the webpage now is a donate button in yellow. It'll take you to a donation page at Uncommon Giving, where you can donate. You can read about the relief efforts. We've been very, very transparent. You can see all of the bios of all the advisory board members, the organizations that are involved, because transparency, especially at a time of crisis we discuss like this, is so important. So please, www.MENA2050.org and hit that yellow donate button. Because
I think that was a lot of people's concerns about Syria. Would aid from Israel or other countries make its way through? And we heard horrific stories that a lot of the aid was being stockpiled by some of the Syrian government and was not getting to the people that needed it. So an organization like MENA Aid is so hugely, hugely important for our region.
It's very important. Like I said, we don't do politics. As you mentioned, we're all humans. We can't worry about what's going on from a political standpoint. We need to get aid and relief to people that need it. And when you talked about what was going on, yes, logistically, Syria was very difficult. But when you have partners like the Jordan Health Aid Society, and you have working with Turkish NGOs, then yes, Israel, obviously, Syria is not going to take any aid from, but we were able to work with partners behind the scene. We're not a nation that looks for the credit. We do what we have to do because it's the right thing to do. An interesting story was we were trying to get medicines, Tylenol and Advil, or I guess you call them paracetamol, drugs. And we were worried that if we had pharmaceuticals or anything with Hebrew writing in it, that for sure we would be in trouble in Syria and the whole operation would be blown. So I literally brought suitcases full of medicines, clothing, and supplies from the United States so that we could get them to our Palestinian partners, who could get them to the Jordan Health Aid Society so they could get them into Syria. So we do what we have to do to provide aid, and we hope it gets in the right hands. And when you have an organization of NGOs that are on the ground in those countries who all decide to put everything else aside to work together, it's amazing what we can accomplish. I wish day-to-day life was like this. It's unfortunate that these kind of tragedies is what it takes to bring people together. But you know what? At least we come together, and we're doing it, and we've done it successfully. I hate to say that we learn from what happens each time, but Syria and Turkey was the first time that we came together as the organization to provide this kind of relief. And I think we did very, very well. We learned a lot of lessons from it. And unfortunately, now we have another tragedy in Morocco that we're dealing with.
Well, because I received that question from a listener who was concerned, how does it work when it comes to countries where Israel has no relations with? Does the aid get to the people? So it's very, very reassuring to hear that when we do send aid, there are NGOs on the ground, and every precaution is taken to ensure that that aid gets to them and doesn't have any kind of blowback. So,
absolutely. And what I think I also need to make very, very clear is we're not doing anything in Morocco without partnering with NGOs on the ground in Morocco, because we can't go into the country that we don't know well and think we know the immediate needs. People's egos all get checked at the door when we do something like this. And so Israel Aid is working with partners in Morocco. The Jordan Health Aid Society is working. We're all collectively, NOLA, working and trying to figure out who are we going to partner with, and asking the people on the ground, what do you need? Not because what we think they need is immaterial, right? What worked in Syria or Turkey does not necessarily work in Morocco. And so we need to have constant communications and a great relationship. And it's difficult because they're dealing with a terrible tragedy. They're trying to get relief right away, but they're very happy to take our phone calls, to talk to us and let us know. And it's quick. What do you need? What can we get you? That's the basic thing that everybody understands and knows that that's all we need to know.
So for anybody who is listening and does want to help, does want to make a donation, you can do it through www.MENA250.org.
MENA2050.org.
MENA 2050.
2050.
Okay, so that's MENA, MENA 2050.org. And as we've just heard from Eric, the aid goes exactly to where it's needed, and it's based on the assessment that it is exactly what the people need, because once those search and rescue teams have left, there is still a lot more that needs to be done to help people through a tremendous time of crisis. It's really, really extraordinary. I'm always amazed at the work you do, but now I'm even more amazed because understanding the people-to-people impact and just how to the nth degree you are drilling down to discover and to help where it is needed is just that's why I had to have you in here in studio. You're just phenomenal.
Well, thanks so much. And it is about people to people. I think that also Israel learned a lot during Operation Good Neighbor.
Yeah.
Eyal Dror providing relief to the people of Syria when nobody else would come to their aid, with the Assad regime, with ISIS, with the Islamic rebels, the Iranians. It's difficult. But, people didn't understand, why is Israel providing aid to a neighbor that is still hostile? Well, that's what Israel does. When people need something, we figure out a way to get it done. I think that was one of the greatest humanitarian operations of all time, Operation Good Neighbor.
100%.
I wish that IL Dror or the IDF would have won a Nobel Peace Prize for that, because that was an unbelievable operation. It's just who Israel is and what Israel does when it's needed.
And I think those smiles on the faces of children who received life-saving operations, and even the families of the white helmets who the IDF managed to evacuate from Syria to safety, either in neighboring Jordan or other countries, is simply extraordinary. Now let's talk about another area that you are passionate about, and I'm always in awe looking at the people that you are bringing into Israel, and that is sports diplomacy. So tell our listeners, what exactly is sports diplomacy?
Yeah, it's a fancy term, but as we've been talking, whether it's earthquake relief or other aid that's needed, it has to be about the people, right? Again, we don't do politics, and what I found is that sports is a great way to bring people together. When you're on the pitch, hopefully you don't care if your teammate is an Arab or an Israeli Arab, if he's Christian, Muslim, or Jewish, if he's black, brown, or white. You want to play sports, right? When you're a kid and you're growing up, you just want to have a good time and play sports. So when you think about that, and you think and really understand that issues about racism and anti-Semitism and hatred in general is not something kids are born with. It's something they're learned, right? So if we can get children, young adults, when they're younger, who look up to professional athletes, to see these athletes come together and not care about anything other than having fun, developing children, education, that sports is a great way to unite people. And so I've affiliated with some organizations. I think one of the most important that you were alluding to is Athletes for Israel, was founded by Daniel Posner from New York, who does unbelievable work. And Daniel loves sports, loves Israel, loves combating anti-Semitism, equally important, loves combating racism and hatred. And so he had this great idea about bringing professional athletes from the United States to Israel, because, as you mentioned, there's so much on social media that's just not true. Or forget social media, whether it's the news at the New York Times or CNN or MSNBC, the stories they tell are biased, and it's not the reality of Israel. So what we try to do is really multi-purpose, bring people here so they could see for themselves what Israel's really about. Okay, the best way to understand is, don't turn your TV off, turn social media off. You want to know the truth about Israel?
Come here.
Come to Israel. And in July, Eddie Johnson and Mark West were here on an Athletes for Israel delegation. And when Eddie went back to the United States, he went on his TV shows and his podcast, and he said to people, just go. Don't listen to what you say. Just go to Israel, because that's the only way you're going to learn. I think they had maybe not a 180-degree view, but they were able to see that most of what they see on TV is not true. And so that's one purpose. But the other purpose is, how do we bring people together?
Yes.
So let's take basketball, for example. We do basketball clinics. So it doesn't matter. We'll do them in Jerusalem. We'll do them in Tel Aviv. We'll come here and we'll do them in Modiin. And what you see is Jewish, Christian, Muslim children playing basketball together. We work a lot with Tamir Goodman, the Jewish Jordan, another great American Israeli who has a heart of gold that loves giving back to children. And we do a lot with basketball. And one of the things, I don't know if you've heard the story, but there's actually a Palestinian woman from Bethlehem who was the top female basketball player in the Palestinian territory. MENA is her name. And she wanted to get to the next level. So if you want to get to the next level, you go from playing basketball in the Palestinian territories. She wanted to play professional basketball in Israel. And she became the first Palestinian female athlete to play for an Israeli team.
What an incredible story.
It's an amazing story. And so what we also want to do is we want to promote MENA. She has put everything aside because she has a goal of someday playing in the WNBA. Okay. So now I read this story and I said, you know what? I have to reach out to MENA. I don't know how to get to MENA. I'm in the United States, so I call Sarah, one of my friends in Ramallah, and I said, do you know this story? Do you know who she is? She goes, I don't know who she is, but I'll have you her number in the morning. I wake up in the morning, I have Myrna's number. I call, I said, Myrna, look, we just want to bring children together, educate them, boys, girls, all races, all nationalities. Would you be willing to come to our basketball clinic in Jerusalem? Without a hesitation, she said yes. So you think about it, we have Tamir Goodman, an observant Jew. We have Myrna,
a Palestinian
a
woman,
Palestinian woman, and African-American professional basketball players from the United States teaching the children skills. But not just basketball skills. They also talk to them about life. What do you want to be when you grow up? But also importantly, so many children want to be a professional athlete. But the reality is very few get to be a professional athlete. So our professional athletes, give them messages, do well in school, become a doctor, become a lawyer, figure out what you want to do. And it really helps, inspire them. I mean, one of my favorite moments of this last clinic in July was Eddie Johnson asked Myrna if she would work with him to show some drills to the kids. So here we have Myrna, this Palestinian woman from Bethlehem. Eddie's guarding her. All the kids in this particular section were Jewish. And Myrna drives to the hoop, puts a move on Eddie, scores a basket, and everybody just applauds. That's what the world should be, is people, especially children, getting together.
And especially Palestinian children, learn to have hope in your future and not to fall for what is taught to you in your school books.
Yeah, look, it's as you know, it's not easy on Myrna. There are people that oppose what she's doing, but she deserves all of our love and all of our support because she has a dream. And why should one person be able to fulfill their dream and another can't? If she wants to play at the WNBA, let's encourage her and let's get her there.
Well, Myrna, we are rooting for you here at Radio Modiin. We want the front row. Am I right? Because what I know about basketball is scary. Unless I'm the ball, I know nothing. We want those front row seats to watch Myrna play at the WNBA.
We'll make that happen.
Excellent. I'm going to hold you to it, and I know you will, which means you're going to have to explain basketball to me very quickly. I mean, I can attest to the unifying power of sport. I grew up in South Africa during the years of apartheid. It's Rugby World Cup happening in France at the moment. And one of the most seminal moments for us was watching the Springboks or the Bokke transcend those racial barriers. And our history was very, very painful, very, very dark. And watching Nelson Mandela walk on to the rugby field in his number 6 jersey, the number of the captain, Francois Pienaar, and just how it helped us as we were coming into democratic South Africa, just break those barriers with each other, because to have that victory, to win the World Cup on our soil after this massive transition from apartheid to democracy was phenomenal. And if anything, I hope it just lends another testament for just how great your work is, and just how the impact that you are making will transcend generations.
Yeah, and we talked briefly about what we do in Israel, but then Daniel also had this idea, well, if that works this way, why wouldn't it work in other countries?
Yeah.
And so for the first time ever, recently, a couple of weeks ago, we had the University of Arizona and the Kansas State men's basketball teams that were in Israel for about a week. And then Athletes for Israel, Daniel also helped support getting them to Abu Dhabi. So these two American top-tier college basketball teams got to fly from Tel Aviv to Abu Dhabi.
Our Abrahamic partner.
Our Abrahamic partners. So sports diplomacy, yes, it could work in an individual country like Israel, but also we can use it to bring the region together. So now we are talking to other people in Abu Dhabi. We're talking to people in Dubai, Bahrain, and when the time is right, we'll go to Morocco. But we could do this regionally and we could do this globally. And I think what we can show is that just like we've all come together at MENA Aid to provide relief, that athletes and sports people, they're getting tired of the hatred in sports. You know, whether it's football, rugby, this just needs to stop. And for the good or bad, our children look up to these athletes. And so let's use them for a positive message and try to change a generation.
And if anybody wants to become involved or show support, how do they get in touch with you?
Athletesforisrael.org. You can go to their website, MENA Aid. Just a lot of great organizations that are doing fabulous work. And you always know how to get in touch with me. So.
I know how to get in touch with them. I'm telling you, you are changing the world, whether it is providing aid, whether it's bringing our Abrahamic partners together, athletes to Israel, or just really inspiring us as you do every single day. I am so thrilled we finally got you in a studio. Eric Rubin, I cannot thank you enough. And I look forward to having you again and again and again to speak about more projects that you are involved with.
Well, thank you again for having me. And I tell people, if you invite me, I will come. So you just invited me, Rolene. I will be back. I promise you that.
Well, to use a sports metaphor, if you build it,
they will come.
They will come. And that's going to be it from me, Rolene Marks, on Modiin and Beyond today. What a show. A huge thank you to my guests, Eric Rubin and Rabbi Shalom Hammer of Gila's Way. A big thank you to Pe'er Atya for all his patience. And thank you to the listeners. Please can I take this opportunity to wish you all Shana Tova. Eric, Shana Tova to you and your lovely wife and family. I think this year is already off to a great start with you making Aliyah. And may this be a year of good health, of prosperity, and above all, of peace for our region. I will catch you again in the new year next week.
I look and stare so deep in your eyes. I touch on you more and more every time. When you leave, I'm begging you not to go. Call your name 2-3 times in a row. Such a funny thing for me to try to explain. How I'm feeling and my pride is the one to blame. Yeah, cause I know I don't understand just how your love can do it, no one else can. Got me looking so crazy right now. Your love's got me looking so crazy right now. Got me looking so crazy right now. Your touch got me looking so crazy right now. Got me hoping you page me right now. Your kiss got me hoping you save me right now. Looking so crazy, your love's got me looking so crazy, your love. When I talk to my friends so quietly, who we think he is? Look at what you did to me. Fitted shoes don't even need to buy a new dress. If you ain't there, ain't nobody else to impress. The way that you know what I gotta know is the beat in my heart just when I'm with you. But I still don't understand just how you look and do it, no one else can. Got me looking so crazy right now. Your love's got me looking so crazy right now. Got me looking so crazy right now. Your touch got me looking so crazy right now. Got me hoping you page me right now. Your kiss got me hoping you save me right now. Looking so crazy, your love's got me looking so crazy, your love. Looking so crazy, your love's got me looking so crazy, your love.
Young Hope, y'all know when the flow is loco. Young B and the ROC. OG, big homie, the one and only. Stick bony, but the pockets are fat like Tony. Soprano, the rock handle like Ben X2. I shake phonies, man, you can't get next to. The genuine article, I do not sing though. I sling though, if anything, I bling yo. Star like Ringo, war like a Greensboro rep. Crazy, bring your whole set. Crazy in the range, crazy in the range. They can't figure him out, they like, hey, is he insane? Yes, sir, I'm cut from a different cloth. My texture is the best fur chinchilla. I've been dealing with chain smokers. How you think I got the name over? I've been real, the game's over. Fall back young, ever since I made the change over the platinum, the game's been a rap one.
Got me looking so crazy, my baby. I'm not in my